Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Future of Joshi series right here on the YouTube channel. Today, we are talking one specific wrestler whose future is as bright as any. That is, of course, Victoria Yuzuki, who today, this very date, the 17th of November, celebrates her second anniversary in professional wrestling. And I thought, based on the journey she has taken from her very first match to now, I think celebrating what she's done and what she continues to do in the squared circle feels very, very ideal for this episode. So let's get to it. We're going to talk about her entire journey from the very beginning, debuting as Momo Watanabe in Stardom, all the way to her United National Championship win, as well as her first defense against Rhea Seto. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Thank you for all the support that we continue to get here on the channel. It means the absolute world to me. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Future of Joshi is a project that I have worked on for years, really. It originally started as a written series over on Voices of Wrestling, and now we bring it all the way to the YouTube channel, and we get to highlight the best young wrestlers in the Joshi scene today. We won't just be doing one of these episodes, though. I do have a plan to do a third to kind of look at the whole scene, but I wanted to celebrate Yuzuki's anniversary here on the 17th. It only felt right. It only felt like the perfect time to do that, especially with everything that she has accomplished in her first 2 years. So thank you, everyone, to join me. I want to also thank everyone who has continued to support the channel, support us through all the videos and all the content we're making. So before we get to the actual thing, let me just promote this one time. If you haven't seen it, we kicked off another series, Joshi Showcase, highlighting Chihiro Hashimoto. I had Xavier on. We talked 4 matches for the most unique, intense, best matches from Chihiro Hashimoto's career and highlighted why she's so special, highlighted why you should be watching her, not only now, but in her past. She is a phenomenal wrestler, also celebrating her 10th anniversary this past weekend with a 10th anniversary match. So please, please, please check this out. You can also check out the Sarism Chapter 9 5-star review right here on the channel as well. If you haven't got there already, main evented Sari and Suzuki versus Natsupoi and Chihiro Hashimoto. So that's well worth your time as well. And to go all the way back, if you haven't seen it yet, you can also check out the Stardom Crimson Nightmare show review. So if you haven't seen it, if you have missed any of it, that's where to go. That's what to check out so far here on the channel. But now let's get to our Future of Joshi episode 2. And that is, of course, talking the first 2 years of Victoria Yuzuki's career. An incredible 2 years at that. This has been a wild 2 years for a wrestler who came in guns a blazing. I remember it like it was yesterday. We had a new rookie, a new exciting rookie who is going to debut at New Blood against Momo Watanabe by the name of Yuzuki. At the time, having the brown hair, the pants and all these different things, so different from what she's obviously become in time. But just Yuzuki at the time. And it was one of those like, okay, we'll just see, because I think it had been a while, for me at least, that in Stardom there was a rookie that felt really special. And this wasn't being prompted up as a super rookie or anything like that in our view, but rather it was a debut. We've had the debuts, we were having the debuts as time went on. A lot of debuts, of course, over the past couple of years now. But it was just a match, going into it. And ultimately, what it became was so much more than that. I remember myself and others, friends of mine, we watched this match and said, this is the future. That's how great Izuki's performance was. This is the future. She is the future. It was an instant belief in what she brings to the table, instant belief in who she is and who she can be as a professional wrestler. It spoke for itself. That's how good this debut was. It didn't have the hype of a super rookie or anything like that. It was on a New Blood show. It was against Momo Watanabe, so a very good opponent, very good debut opponent. She's had some major matches in terms of being the debut opponent for many wrestlers who have become stars today. But thinking back to that and thinking to where she is now, there is no one maybe that has had as much confidence from the word go. And it was fascinating because if you watch Suzuki make her entrance, you know, it was kind of like the deer in the headlights. She didn't look like she was all too locked in, but once that bell rang, the confidence grew. The confidence was there. It's fascinating really to look at because I think when it comes to Yuzuki, so much of what I think makes her great, and we've seen it through the years now, is the confidence that speaks for itself. And at the time, she was just 18 years old, so just a teenager and figuring out who she wanted to be, of course. But she had the rolling arrow pin, you know, that was her big uh setup, especially through the first couple months of her career. And as you can see here, we got a great near fall before Momo Watanabe ultimately beat her. But it was from the word go that Victoria Yuzuki said, I'm here and I'm going to be a difference maker. There was a reason that when she ended up leaving Marigold, it was such a big deal despite being only a few months into her career. And we'll talk more about that as we get there. But we continue on kind of in the Stardom part of Victoria Zuki's career, which I think is a very unique part of her career because it can kind of be forgotten. You know, it wasn't long. She only wrestled a handful of matches there, but she did get 17 in. You know, she her first 5 matches were all singles matches. She faced Mo Watanabe, Miyu Amasaki, Ami Sourei, Hina, and Rina. She also faced Mai Sakurai, Starlight Kid, Mai Sakurai twice, believe it or not, in singles matches. Saida, May Sarah. The May Sarah match, I remember that one. That was year-end climax. That was a real good case of like, I remember at the time being like, Yuzuki could be a really great high-speed wrestler, and sooner rather than later. And as part of her time in Stardom. She did get to join Stars. As you know, if you followed Victoria Yuzuki for any sort of time, you know that her inspiration, her idol is of course Mayu Iwatani. So it felt like the perfect connection. She was also the first wrestler to join Stars in years. It was a big deal, you know. We had Mayu, Hanan, Saida, Hazuki, Koguma, and Momokogo. That was pretty much stars for a very long time. Um, and then Victoria Zuki was the one that was welcomed in. And not that it ultimately mattered for all too long, because of course she'd move on soon after. But I think it was another case of belief in her from not only someone like a Mayu who welcomes her into Stars, but the company itself. It was clear that Stardom had high hopes for Victoria Zuki. There's a reason that she ultimately won the returning Rookie of the Year tournament, which I think can be kind of forgotten. So the Rookie of Stardom 2023 tournament was held on the New Year's Stars 2024 Happy New Year Stardom at the Yokohama Budokan on January the 3rd. In the first round, she defeated Rana Yagami, who debuted just a few weeks before that, and then ultimately defeated Hanako in a real shock in the main. Hanako and Aya Sakura specifically had debuted a few months prior. Izuki had debuted right at the end of the year, but they were going all in on Victoria Yuzuki, at the time known as the Moon Arrow. You know, that was kind of her nickname, shooting the arrow and all that. They went all in. And there was a belief, there was a reasoning to invest in someone like a Victoria Yuzuki. They brought back this Rookie of the Year tournament, seemingly Rookie of Stardom specifically, to build her up, to make her and make known this is the star in the making. So as time goes on and the decision is made, things change, things get crazy. It's like, hold on, she's leaving. She ultimately was part of the announcement that would be leaving Stardom, along with Utami Hayashishita, Mai Sakurai, Julia. Is that? Oh my! I'm no, I'm missing someone. Utami Hayashishita, obviously. Like, she was part of that announcement, and at the time, it was such a big deal because there was still so much uncertainty. What was the new promotion that Rossy Ogawa was creating? Who would go? How many people would go? It wasn't a lot, but it was a reasonable amount, and as we know now, especially with Yuzuki and Mai Sakurai, those 2 have built themselves up to be big time names. Oh, and Mirai. I forgot Mirai because she just recently left. Um, but I remember the reaction. I remember the reaction very similar to, her debut match, and that was, this is the biggest name switching over. Victoria Yuzuki leaving is the biggest name. This is someone who has very quickly established themselves as a future star, a future white belt, red belt type level in the, like, that's the potential she has. And for her to make the decision of, I'm leaving, this is where I'm going, I think is truly, truly something that can kind of be overlooked since then, and I think looking back then and looking to where she is now, she was willing to take on a lot of pressure quickly. She hadn't been that far into her career by the time she said, "You know what? I am going to leave Stardom and bet on myself." She did get her match with Mayu Iwatani as part of this, Cinderella tournament. She wasn't in the actual tournament, but they did have a match on one of those shows. And then there was a Yuzuki Gauntlet where she wrestled, against All of Stars, which was a really nice way for her to get sent out. And then it was on March 31st where she wrestled May Sarah and had her final match. So from there, it was on. Yuzuki had said, I am moving on. I am going to Marigold. And in the very first press conference, she said, I am the future ace of this promotion. And not only that, she changed everything. She was no longer just Yuzuki. She was no longer had the brown hair. She now had blonde hair, and she was going by Victoria Yuzuki. It was a complete change for her, complete change for someone who was still so new to pro wrestling. This was a complete change for someone who was still so fresh, still so new, and she changed everything. Gear, hair, name, everything. And there again was a confidence to her. That's going to be a key term throughout this video. There was a confidence to Victoria Zuki that has carried her from this moment of saying to herself, I'm going to bet on myself. I am going to leave Stardom, somewhere that I'm pretty confident she would have been in a great spot, as time went on, right? To join Marigold and be one of the future pillars, future stars, and ultimately the future ace of this promotion. That is what I want to be. That is what Victoria Yuzuki said I want to be. And to see where she's gotten to now, it's truly special. It's truly special to watch her evolve, to watch her grow. I know that, this continuous debate on some people love Victoria Yuzuki, I think it's undeniable that Victoria Yuzuki is great. I do. You don't have to say she's like the best of the best, maybe among the future stars of Joshi. But I think what Victoria Yuzuki puts in, the work she puts in, the amount she cares, and just the overall matches she's had this year alone have proven why she is such an exciting prospect and why that prospect idea is now becoming a reality. She is no longer just, you no longer watch Suzuki and think about if. It's now. She makes things happen. She makes it happen. She ultimately gets to be in the very first Marigold match at Marigold Fields Forever. She is going one-on-one with Nanai Takahashi. And it's a match that you can see, she had taken a few months off. She was out of the ring for about 2 months at this point, obviously training and stuff. But in terms of a true, real match, she was out of the ring. And while there was rustiness there, there is still, I remember watching it, and I remember seeing again the raw potential that she had. And she's fighting someone in Nanai who is always a tough mountain to climb, always a tough person to overcome. And for her, the pressure of being that first match, the pressure of wanting to be great, the pressure of wanting to be at the top as soon as she possibly can to help build up this promotion, it was all real. It was all real, but the ability was always there. It just was going to come in time. And through those first few months in Marigold, Victoria Yuzuki continuously made strides. Yes, she was still a rookie at the end of the day. She is still in her first year at this time. There's still going to be bumps and bruises along the way in so many ways. Not every match is going to be perfect. Not every match is going to be to the level that I think we expect it to be. But in time, she's going to keep learning. She's going to keep growing. And that's what she kept doing. So by the time we got to the very first Dream Star Grand Prix, it was a sense of this she's ready. She is ready to take on these big matches. She is ready to take on these big opponents like Asari, like an Utami, and wrestle them in ways that I think are very important to her growth and to where she's going. Um, you know, it's hard to go to just the Dream Star, but she had to qualify to get there. She wasn't just in. I think that's also very important. She had to qualify to get there, and that was by beating Myla Grace in a qualifying match to get in. An important aspect, I think, of her first year is the growing pains. And, she had singles matches throughout. She had a singles match with Sari at Corkin Hall. She had a match with Koki Amare and Miku Ano and Misa Matsui, losing them all because, again, she's still a rookie. But each time you're seeing her prove a little bit more, prove that I'm going to be on your levels, if not surpass you all. Maybe not like Sari and Mikuano, but Koki and Misa Matsui, so that when we get to that Dream Star, when we get to that match, it's going to be undeniable. I'm going to be undeniable. And I think that's so important. But perhaps the first step, I think, really, outside of her saying I'm going to be the future ace, but of Marigold showing this is our future star actually came in the Julia gauntlet. When Julia was leaving, she had the farewell gauntlet match. That was kind of the big main event at Shinkiba first ring. And it was Victoria Yuzuki, the only wrestler to defeat Julia in that match. And I think that can be so fascinating to look back on because when we saw Nanai Takahashi have her kind of instant um, gauntlet when she was retiring, Suri Yamioka pinned her, and I think there can be things that are or overlooked at times, but I think when you see a match like this where Julia is wrestling everyone, Julia is wrestling Bozilla, Chiaki, Chikagoto, Nori, Sari was in this match, Tsukasa Fujimoto was in this match, Utami was in this match, all these different things, right? And when you have all these competitors taking part, and it's Yuzuki who is able to get that pinfall, it's a sense of we wanted to give her a pin. Yes, Julia's been wrestling for minutes and minutes and minutes, but it means more when it's the only one that happens. And for Yuzuki, I think that's a confidence boost at the time. I think that's a confidence boost that brings her into the Dream Star Grand Prix. And while again, it's not the Grand Prix that I think she had this year, where she was probably the MVP of the entire thing. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. She was able to build herself up through it and work her way to what was eventually her first title match, going to a time limit draw on the very first show against Natsumi Shizuki, who at the time was the uh Superfly champion. That was very important. And that ultimately granted her her first opportunity, her first chance to challenge for the belt. And as we know, as time would go on, that would become her first championship. So her dream star ends with 5 points, including a great win over Nori on the final night that I remember very fondly. But she had matches with Nozaki, Mirai, Gochika, Koki Amare, Utami, and like I said, Shozuki. So while it's not necessarily a run that I think everyone's going to go back and remember, again, it's a building point. So many times these tournaments serve as lessons because you're getting in there and you're having big singles matches time and time and time again to figure yourself out and to learn and to grow. And that's what Victoria Yuzuki did really through this tournament. When she comes out of this tournament, she's an improved wrestler in every which way. You know, she is a wrestler who is going to go into Corkin Hall on October 7th. 2024 and face Natsumi Shizuki for the Superfly Championship and not lose, but rather go to a time limit draw. It was a sense of, I am this close. I am this close to putting it all together. I am this close to figuring out and making that next level up. And I think that's so much of Yuzuki's 2 years thus far is having that match that tells you, I'm ready for the next one. Having that match that tells you, I'm ready for what's in front of me. While she came up short here, it was inevitable that she was going to win championship gold sooner rather than later. But for now, she had other opportunities, other places to go between that time. You know, it was pretty calm until really the beginning of the year, but Yuzuki was starting to have important matches. You know, they challenged for the tag belts, which I think was an important part. You know, Mirai Saku versus Celine Floor, Kazuna and Victoria Yuzuki getting to team up. At the same time, we're watching Yuzuki and Utami really become close. And I think Yuzuki utilized these championship matches, both for the Superfly and the Twin Star, to just make that confidence that we know she has feel reaffirming in many ways, to feel like, yeah, I do got this. I do got this in the big match, in the big spot. I'm going to perform. I'm going to shine. And so much of her first year was that. So when we flip the page, when we go to that next year, it's fascinating to see how quickly it all comes about, you know, and how quickly she goes from okay, you know, I'm still developing to I'm now. I am now. And that all comes very quickly when you get to First Dream. At First Dream, it's Victoria Zuki's time to win championship gold. She wins the Superfly Championship, defeating Natsumi Shozuki in 13 minutes and 14 seconds at Oda Ward, the first show of the year. And it's from there she is established. It is from there she says, I am the now. I am winning this championship. This isn't the white belt. This isn't the red belt, but I'm going for the Grand Slam. I want to be Marigold's first Grand Slam champion. I want to be their future ace. She is saying, she is demanding, she is telling you she wants to be all these things, and she is showing it in the ring. She is showing it in her promos and everything she does of why this wrestler who started in Stardom and made the jump, why she did that. And I think that's again so much of the fun for me in her first 2 years is seeing her go from in many ways a daring rookie willing to take a chance to someone who continuously shows that's why I did it. You know, that's why I did this because I could handle it. I could step up. I could get to the next level that I firmly believe I'm capable of. And I think that's something you want to see with rookies. That's something that and you know, it's hard to compare her and like Sari Yamaoka because Sari Yamaoka was obviously the super rookie and has all these major matches. And I think shines a lot more in her first year than maybe Yuzuki even did, despite Yuzuki's really cool opportunities. But it's what you want to see out of rookies. You want to see the gradual climb. So by the end of their second year, right, when that second anniversary comes around, they're standing so tall. And what Yuzuki was able to do with the Superfly Championship is have some really good title matches. Um, she won the Superfly title and instantly defended against Yuki Mashiro, who was an outsider at the time, but won the Battle Royal to kind of earn the opportunity. She beat her in just 8 minutes, but it was the Misa Matsui match on February 7th, 2025 at Shinjuku Face. That was I think there was like this match right here. This is Yuzuki's best match. This is the match that you utilize Misa Matsui to do so many times, I think, in Marigold thus far, right? Is Misa Matsui put her in a title match, she's going to give you a great title match. But it goes both ways. These two had to show chemistry. These two had to showcase something together. And this was the best singles match, I think, up until this point of Yuzuki's career. There was just so much to like about it. 14 minutes and 49 seconds, so plenty of time, a championship defense, and the spotlight was on her. You know, this was the main event. This match was put in the main event and given center stage. Much like her Rhea Seto match for the United National title in the very same venue, we are giving Yuzuki center stage to prove herself with a championship around her waist. And that's what she did. She proved it with Misa Matsui. She showed it with Misa Matsui. And from there, we'd start to build. Who is going to be Victoria Yuzuki's rivals? You know, I think that was always a question for myself in time was who are going to be the rivals of Victoria Yuzuki? And we quickly got there soon after because you look at the future, you know, by the time Saraya Mioka had debuted, and I think that was the one many of us circled as these two can create magic. These two can do something special. And it all started when the Marigold Twin Star Championships were on the line, Cork and Hall, February 20th, 2025. Nai Takahashi and Saraya Mioka defending against Utami Hayashishita and Victoria Yuzuki. This is one of the great twin star matches in Marigold's history. One of the just great matches, and maybe one of the most underrated matches in its history. But it was the first chance for these two specifically to be showcased, for these two specifically be showcased in a major match, in a major opportunity with gold on the line, with Cork and Hall being the venue. It was perfect. It was perfect. They had wrestled in a three-way match right before that, going to a 15-minute time limit draw and showing a sort of scrappiness, a sort of, you know, rivals because Saraya Mioka debuted and won championship gold within 2 weeks. 2 weeks of her debut. Yuzuki had to take over a year to win that first gold. While she won the Rookie of Stardom tournament, she had to wait a long time. You know, she had challenged Rena for the future Stardom back in Stardom. She had challenged for the Superfly once, came up short when time ran out, but once the second time came around, she won gold. And instantly, it's like this is the person that's challenging me to be future race. This is the person that's challenging me to be great. And I think what we've seen between these two is that they push each other to be greater. It's fascinating that now by the time this video is out, that these two have had a title match together. They have teamed up together to challenge for the Twin Star Championships. To think that that's how they first truly met in a big time setting was for these belts, and now they're teaming for these belts. I think it's really cool. And I think these two are kind of set to be the rivalry of the future for Marigold. And this match, the action in this match, and Saraya Mioka pinning Yuzuki to win this match was again a sign of this is one to remember. This is a match to remember, a rivalry to remember. We are on our way up. This match was fantastic at the time and kind of set the bar for where these two could go against each other, apart from each other, whatever it may be. But that isn't the only rival I think that we got in time for Victoria Yuzuki. What the Superfly Championship created was another rivalry, one that we saw just recently, another big time match, and that's Rhea Seto. Rhea Seto at this time was not a heel; she was just a rookie in many ways, you know, trying to make proper strides and trying to figure out who she wanted to be as a wrestler. And through her matches with Victoria Yuzuki, she found it. And I think there is something to be said that Victoria Yuzuki's skill set allowed Seto to find the type of style she wanted. And in so quickly from here, they face each other for the Superfly championship. You see Seto starting what has become her great targeted offense of limb targeting and attacking, you know, the legs of wrestlers specifically to a point where she has to get so creative to keep it interesting, but she does it so well. So when Rhea Seto challenges for the Superfly championship, it's a match that has ultimately set the stage for a rivalry that has brought the best out of both of them. A rivalry that had one of the best Dream Star Grand Prix matches to date. A rivalry that has reached all the way up to the United National Championship. You know, I don't know if anyone had picked Rhea Seto to be, you know, Yuzuki's great rival, but boy, oh boy, she has taken the role of being the top rival, I think, in full force, and has gotten so much out of it. We'll talk about it a bit later when it gets to the Grand Prix United National, as well, but this was the step. This title match was a step. It only went 9 minutes, but it's a building block. It's a building block for a rivalry that we're gonna watch develop in time, and one that honestly was really welcoming and really exciting. So this was a great start for these 2, and then from there, Izuki bit off a little bit more than she could chew. Mayu Iwatani officially joins Marigold in May, becoming a full-time roster member, and there was no other destination for Yuzuki when it came to that first anniversary show of Marigold. She had debuted in Marigold as the very first match against Nai Takahashi. Now when we celebrate a year later, how much has changed? Well, Mayu Iwatani's here. Mayu Iwatani is now part of this company. That is the wrestler I've looked up to. That is the wrestler I've dreamed so many times to face. I'm challenging her. I'm not waiting for her. I'm challenging her. You see this belt? You challenged me for this belt. You want to be the Grand Slam champion? You want to be the savior? I'm the future race. I'm the first. I'm going to be the first Grand Slam champion. You have to go through me. And it speaks to the storyline confidence of Victoria Yuzuki, the in some ways, as we've seen throughout her time, the big-headedness, maybe even, of, "I could take on any challenge and not even worry about it." Well, she sure should have worried about it because, of course, it was at First Dream that she dropped the Superfly Championship in a match that Yuzuki was very much put on blast by Mayu going into it. It's like, "You took my moonsaults, you took my super kick, there's a lot of similarities between us." And that kinda set the bar or set the stage for Victoria Yuzuki's evolving that we've seen since then. Yuzuki did a lot of the stuff that she, in many ways took from Mayu and has put them away to become more of her own. While she'll still hit the super kick and while she'll still have some Mayu-isms to her, ever since this match, I think Izuki's become a different wrestler. Maybe it was the ability to wrestle the icon, the ability to wrestle her mentor in a way that meant so much to her on such a big stage, right? And in many ways suffer a dominating loss. Mayu, you know, kinda ran through her and said, "Enough is enough." This match didn't even make 10 minutes. This lasted 9 minutes and 58 seconds with Mayu Iwatani winning her first championship in Marigold. And it's a sense of so many times that we've seen with Mayu and her, juniors, right? Whether it be Tam Nakano or Starlight Kid and now Victoria Yuzuki of each time we face off, each time we go one-on-one, you have to further prove to me that you're ready to beat me. And Yuzuki was just not ready here. And that I think has driven Yuzuki in so many ways to become so great, to arguably be Marigold's Wrestler of the Year, I think. And it drove her into the Grand Prix and things like that. But between that and just a few weeks later, She then had to go one-on-one for the first time with Saraya Miyoka, and she wasn't able to beat her. These 2 go to a 15-minute draw in their first ever singles match at Shinjuku Face. A awesome, awesome match. But again, it is a roadblock for Victoria Yuzuki. It is a roadblock that she had not faced in quite some time. There was so much success. There was so many, uh, W's and adding up and adding up and adding up. But these 2 facing off after coming straight after that tough loss to Mayu Iwatani, it was time to go, and change. You know, Yuzuki has already experienced change. She went from Yuzuki to Victoria Yuzuki, changing everything about herself, and by the time we got to First Stream, she was a different wrestler than she was when she debuted in Marigold. And by the time we got to the Mayu match, she had to then be a different wrestler again if she wanted to reach the mountaintop, because she learned the mountaintop, which is someone like Mayu Utani, she can't overcome that. And if she can't overcome the super rookie in their first ever one-on-one match, all right, well, we have to keep building, we have to keep growing. And that's really been the beauty of these 2 years, is Yuzuki has always added to the arsenal, has always added to her moveset, always doing something new. That's something that I've always, always said about her, is there is a mindset here to always get better. There's a mindset here to always try something new. Is it always gonna look pretty? No, but that's the beauty of using these house shows, using these matches to improve. And you see it throughout the roster now, where a lot of people, I think, have taken that, but she has the confidence to continuously do it. And from there, no longer is she hitting the three-piece moonsault, right? That she had won originally with, that she had won the Superfly with. That went away after the Mayu loss. Instead, it was time to figure out something new, whether that was the victory shooting that she hits on the ground or the victory shooting now that she hits from the top rope. It was time to develop, time to improve, and in time, 2 months later, when the Dreamstar Grand Prix came around, it was time to make an impact. It was time for her to rise to the occasion and get to the top, right? I think that's always so important. But Yuzuki, there is a big-headedness there. Why don't we go for more gold? Why don't we go for the belt? Oh, that Mayu Utani said she was interested. She challenges for the GHC Women's Championship, a match that maybe many forgot, but this was at WrestleMagic 2025. She was the one to step up to Takumi Iroha and try and take this belt. And I think that's very important in her growth, because this is a match, this is an opponent that will test you, that will try to bring something out of you and try to destroy you in many ways, right? There's no connection here between the two. This is the marvelous ace versus the future ace of Marigold. And with so much of this feud, and I've talked about this feud so much, and Yuzuki has been a fun part of it as well. But for her, I think it was again another proving point. Coming off the Mayu loss, coming off the time limit draw with y Siri Yamioka. Okay, I'm just gonna swing for the fences. I'm gonna swing for the fences, and I'm gonna go after Takumi. And while she came up short in that challenge as well, again, it was another building block for her, to the point where now we're gonna head into the Dreamstar Grand Prix. Now we're gonna head into a Dreamstar Grand Prix that is going to be the place that Yuzuki, I think, for hopefully for everyone, fully breaks out to the point where she is undeniable. How do you fully break out? Oh, on night one, the very first night when you have 2 matches, you pin the world champion. In her very first match, in the very first main event on the morning show, she pins Utami Hayashishita and instantly sets the stage for, oh man, this is a different Victoria Suki. This is a win. This is a confidence builder that is now bringing her to the next step. The next step being running through this tournament, running through this tournament. And so much of this, the way this tournament goes, follows a lot of what we've talked about. A lot of what we've talked about here today in this video is making up for losses. So that loss to Mayu Iwatani, she has a chance to face her at the end of this tournament. That draw with Sari Yamaoka, she has a chance to face her in this tournament. The loss for the GHC, okay, well, I'll face the world champion, my tag team partner, and I will pin her on the very first night to tell everyone, to show everyone, this is my tournament. This is my tournament. And Victoria Yuzuki is the MVP. I've said this in my reviews. She was the MVP of the Dream Star, and I think it was quite easily that being the case. She was the absolute MVP of the Dream Star Grand Prix. It was a run from beginning to end that got the best out of every single opponent she had. She got the best out of Chiaki on night 2. She got the best out of Sari Yamaoka. When they face off in their second ever singles match, it is Victoria Yuzuki that pins Sari Yamaoka. Again, getting that confidence back and in full to the point where I can strive for higher heights, and I'm going to do that through this tournament. She brings the best out of Koki Amari. I think that was Koki Amari's best match. Her and Maria have a fun match at Corkin Hall, and then we get to the rematch with Rhea Seto. This is the bump in the road. Yeah, she had lost to Koki Amare, but this was the true bump in the road because Rhea Seto's her rival. Rhea Seto had turned heel right before that, right? Rhea Seto turned against Victoria Yuzuki, and it all came back to her. It all come back on her. And these two have one of the best matches of the entire tournament at Shinjuku Face in a 15-minute time limit draw. I remember it fondly because it looked like it was a Rhea Seto win that was going to come. It was a Rhea Seto win that was going to happen. And what this match did was be that bump in the road for Victoria Yuzuki, who had been running away with the block for the most part, a block that involves Mayu Iwatani, Utami Hashishita, and Sariya Miyoka. She had gotten so strong to the point where this draw brought her to 9 points heading into the final night, and a draw ultimately in the biggest match of the entire tournament before the final would happen. The rematch. The rematch through her first 2 matches with Mayu Iwatani, she did it in her first year and her second year, right? In her first year, she was just a rookie. She lost in 7 minutes. At Shine Forever, where all the confidence and all the eyes were on her, Mayu Iwatani making her first pay-per-view match for Marigold. In many ways, she gets demolished. She gets put to the side. She's told, "You're not ready, kid." Okay, well, how about we step into the Dream Star, the Dream League, in the most anticipated match of the entire tournament on the final night with the chance to go to the finals and we face off. These two had a spectacular match. These two had one of the best matches Marigold's had. This was the best match of Victoria Izuki's career, probably still is. But again, it was the match that I think in many ways she had to have. She had to have a performance like this, and for her to go to a draw with Mayu Iwatani just a few months after she had been destroyed in many ways, showed the growth, showed her evolution, showed where she has gone in such a short time, and I think that really speaks to who Yuzuki has been this entire time, is someone who can make major strides in very little time, who can make major strides day after day, match after match, to the point where when you watch her next big major match, it's an incredible accomplishment. You know, this match is sensational. This match is fantastic. And ultimately, going to a draw earned Victoria Yuzuki in her second year a final spot in the Dream Star Grand Prix. She outlasted Mayu Iwatani. She outlasted Utami Hashishita. She outlasted her new rival in Sariya Miyoka. She outlasted them all to get to the finals and face Miku Ano. And while it ultimately resulted in another big time loss for Victoria Yuzuki, it was all the same. It was a match that said it was a night, not just a match. It was a night that told you, "I'm ready." I may have not beaten Miku Ano. I may have come up short in calling myself the Dream Star Grand Prix winner, but I have shown that I am ready. I am ready for the United National Championship, a belt that she said before the tournament, that's the belt she wanted. That was her next step. She had her eyes on Mai Sakurai. She had her eyes on winning the white belt, the pure white belt, and putting it around her waist. And I think when I think to that match, which will kind of be the big end point of this anniversary and what she's done through these 2 years, when I think of that, I think of those 2 taking chances and how at the time when it was announced that it was Mai Sakurai and Victoria Yuzuki amongst those leaving Stardom for Marigold, Mai Sakurai at the time was the, okay, sure, she's a good hand, right? And for Victoria Yuzuki is like, oh well, that might be the biggest get. That's the future. Two completely different wrestlers, but two wrestlers who have always strived with the same goal of lifting up Marigold and lifting up themselves to a point where they are serious, serious stars in a very, very short time. And I think that's always very interesting. The match with Miku Ano, that night for Victoria Zuki was probably the most tiring night of her life. She had two big major matches within pretty much an hour of each other. I still remember it. I still think to it because like, man, she kept going. And the final, I thought I really enjoyed that final, but nothing was going to come close to that Mayu match. That Mayu match was the I'm ready. I did that with my mentor. I'm ready for the next step. And it's why her challenging my Sakurai, getting the match of the tournament with Mayu Iwatani, being the MVP of the Dreamstar Grand Prix was all so important. She went into that tournament with something to prove. She went into that tournament saying, I am going to be at the top of this business. I'm going to be at the top of this promotion. And while I said I'm the future race, I'm going to get there as quickly as humanly possible. This Dreamstar Grand Prix, I think, was the full on coming out party for Victoria Zuki for anyone that was still behind on that. And what ultimately would all lead to is her United National Championship match with Mai Sakurai, which I think for debate could very well be considered her great match. Marigold or her best match. Marigold Grand Destiny, Ryogoku Sumo Hall, United National Championship, Mai Sakurai and Victoria Yuzuki. Two wrestlers who have taken such vastly different roads to this spot, right? For Mai Sakurai, she is the one, and I have a video coming out soon enough. I have a video in my mind for the rise of Mai Sakurai. But Mai Sakurai made herself this, right? She didn't she wasn't she didn't debut and was like, "Oh, this is a future top star." This no, no, no. No, no, no. She wasn't even that when she left Stardom. When she left Stardom, again, many just said she's a good hand, she's a fine addition. She became someone worthy of being the spot that's going to hand over to the future, that's going to be the ideal champion to hand over. My Sakurai's United National title run was very underrated, I think, very underappreciated because it ultimately was so important. Because in the end, the ultimate payoff, the best two matches, and I think this is always or should always be the goal of a title reign. The best two matches were when she won it and when she lost it. And when she lost it, it was an all-out war. Mai Sakurai said, "You are wrestling my match, Victoria Yuzuki. Victoria Yuzuki, what can you do in changing your match, changing the way you wrestle?" I think that's always something so important in a wrestler's growth. Can they wrestle someone else's match? And for Victoria Yuzuki, boy, oh boy, did she. It was the same with the Mayu match. She wrestled Mayu's match. She's wrestling Mai Sakurai's match and putting her own twist into it. That's how you get the best matches. That's how you get matches to me that stand out. And when these two faced off, this was a war. This was an absolute war between the two that involved massive slaps, massive strikes, dropping each other on each dropping one another on each other's heads. All these different nasty moments to the point where you're like, man, they are going for it. They're trying to steal the show on this very evening. And For my Sakurai, it was the bow on top of a very good United National title reign, the longest title reign that we've seen in for that belt. You know, she surpassed the Miku reign, but it was also the reign with the most defenses, which I think is very important out of any championship we had seen. It was a dominant reign. She went through everyone except for Victoria Yuzuki. And Victoria Yuzuki said, I am going to bring out all the stops. I'm going to debut new things. I'm going to do everything in my power to show it is now my time. Right before my 2-year anniversary, I'm going to show on the biggest stage that we have, it is my time. And that's exactly what she did. She pinned Mai Sakurai hitting the victory shooting from the top rope and won the United National Championship. She became the champion. She stood tall and she showed the future is now. The future is here. I am ready to lead Marigold forward with the United National Championship around my waist. I don't think there's a more perfect champion alongside Miku Ano as the world champion than Victoria Zuki with this belt. I think they are the perfect two champions to lead Marigold forward. And I think, again, it's the work that they've both put in since the word go, since Marigold Fields Forever. They've been two of the biggest stars, two of the most important stars. And watching her win this match, watching her hold this championship above her head and then put it around her waist, it was a sign of, yeah, when the many said, you are the future of pro wrestling after my debut just less than 2 years ago at the time against Momo Watanabe, I have proved everyone that believed in me right, and I've proved the doubters wrong. Victoria Zuki, through her first 2 years, has shown she is the present and future of this industry, to the point where we have watched her grow, we've watched her mold, we've watched her ups, we've watched her downs, we've watched her succeed, we've watched her fail. And now she stands here and she will celebrate her anniversary on this day in another championship match, but she'll celebrate her victory by being a champion, being one of the top two champions in the company, and still with so much to prove, with so much to do. I think when you have matches like you've had with Mayu Utani, when you have matches like you've had with Mai Sakurai, within a few months span, you show you are ready, you are capable. And she had her first defense already. You know, her and Rhea Seto getting to run it back in Shinjuku face and having a uniquely scrappy match that I think those two are very good at, right? It's not perfect, it's not pretty, but hey, these are two wrestlers, 2 years of experience, put into a main event, put into a main event with the United National Championship on the line and absolutely crushing it. You know, it's not it's not a situation that I think everyone can handle with grace, with confidence, with class. Victoria Zuki has done it. And I think so many of the times she wants to keep going, right? But she's learned to start slowing herself down a little. Slowing herself down a little, you know, that was another part of, that first year and a half really was figuring out like it doesn't always have to be go, 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 go. It can be calm. You have the offense, you have the ability to go, 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 but it doesn't always need to be that. And that was one of the most exciting parts of what she's learned and how she's developed to the point where her matches that were good with Mayu Utani, early this year became great in the rematch because she's changed a little bit, she's evolved a little bit, she's developed a little bit, things like that. So as I look back on the 2 years of Victoria Zuki, I see someone who has has guaranteed to be great. She has shown that she is not only great, but she's guaranteed she's going to continue to be that. I've seen someone that has lived up to the expectations, the lofty expectations, and maybe in other ways exceeded them. I've seen someone who has taken the time to work on her craft and develop her craft and use moments in her career to improve on. I think that's always another important part in telling a wrestler's story throughout their careers. how do you take this match, this result, and apply it to something later down the line? That is something that Yuzuki, especially this year, has done very well. I think she's one of the best wrestlers of the year, quite frankly. And now, as she celebrates her second year anniversary, is what does year 3 look like? I enter the year as United National Champion, maybe even Twin Star Champion by the time this comes out. I don't know. But I enter as the number 2 champion in this company. Where do I want to go with this? How high do I want to reach? Can I beat my Sakurai's record of defenses? Can I hold this belt for a year? Like, all these possibilities are out there. And that's kind of going to be the excitement of what she tells for this next year. And why the future of Joshi is so strong is because there is a Victoria Zuki, one of many, leading the way and pushing forward and being and leading the charge that is so exciting. It's why the future's so bright for Marigold. It's why the future's so bright for the Joshi scene. It's because of someone like a Victoria Zuki. Again, I know not everyone's going to love her. She's still going to have her detractors and things like that. But going from day one to anniversary to the second anniversary, and seeing how she's gone, seeing how she's grown, it's been really fun. It's been really fun to do that within this video. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. We'll do more anniversary videos as time goes on. I have one planned for Suri Yamaoka at the start of the year. I'll tell you that right now. We'll do her 1 year anniversary because I think that's a very unique anniversary for a super rookie who's had even loftier expectations than someone like Ayuzuki through her first two. So we'll do that. We'll have another Future of Joshi because the scene is bright and exciting right now. There's been so many good matches and so many good moments for these future young stars. So we will get to that. But this was the uh second anniversary talk of Victoria Zuki going through her career, going through her accomplishments, how she's grown, where she's gone, and where she's going. This is someone that's going to be a Marigold World Champion, someone that's going to be the Marigold Grand Slam champion someday. Whenever we get there, awesome. But until then, I'm just going to enjoy the ride, and hopefully you all are too. So, with that being said, this was episode 2 of the Future of Joshi series, Victoria Zuki, the second anniversary of Marigold's future ace. I'm so excited to see where we are a year from now in her career, 2 years from now, and so on. This is one of my favorite wrestlers to watch in the present day, and I think it's only going to get better and better and better. So, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for joining me. I'll be back this week either on Wednesday night or Thursday with a Joshi Weekly covering the Sendai Girls Korakuen from Sunday, as well as the Marigold Korakuen from today, Monday. So please, please, please keep an eye out for that. Check out everything we've done as well, including Joshi Showcase with Chiro Hashimoto and so much more. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for joining me. And until next time, everyone, so long. See you later. Bye bye.